What do you expect Stan's report has in it?
Yeah, look, I think it's a very comprehensive piece of work.
I can't wait to read that piece of work. Will it be released to the media?
Yeah, it will be, yes. It's a very comprehensive piece of work. So it covers many elements. One of the key pieces that it will provide to us are some decision-making frameworks around our enforcement work and our compliance work. The idea being that when the EPA makes a decision on an industry or an employer to target, it'll be based on a clear framework of consequence and likelihood out there in terms of the environment, so that business will be able to, you know, at the start of a year say, this is how we've assessed the environmental impacts of the area, and as a result we're targeting this particular business in these particular areas. And people will say, oh, okay, that makes sense. Or in fact, actually, no, I've seen your framework, that makes sense, but you've made the wrong decision in regard to it. And when we get to you, the decisions that we take there will be based on a framework. Well, Stan's making recommendations on those exact frameworks. So that's what gives the sort of predictability and consistency that makes regulators great, in my experience. You get that, from that you get this huge leverage. People say, okay, I know what to expect, I'll get on with it. When they get here, I know what to expect. If we don't deliver what they are entitled to expect, there's a way for you to challenge it. So we can, keep getting better that way. That's probably the most important outcomes that we'll get, but there are many others around.
Are you planning on opening up avenues of appeal other than VCAT?
Yeah, Stan will recommend a form of what's called internal review, which is a no-cost, quick turnaround review of decisions that EPA officers will make, which will allow a business at this stage that's been the subject of a notice or something like that to say, look, no, I want that reviewed by someone independent in the organisation. You'll still have your right to go to VCAT, but it allows you to get a turnaround in a couple of weeks, and you don't have to hire lawyers to go and do it as well. It's a really important part of, clearly our job is to make decisions. We need to make more of them faster.
Yep.
That means people have got to use their judgment. That means mistakes will be made. You can't have one without the other. You then have to match that ramp up with a much quicker, slicker mechanism for challenge. Because people want you to make decisions, they all want you to make decisions and faster, but they also say, well, that's not right. I want someone else to have a look at that. I want to be assured that's okay.
Is this not just for organisations? What about ordinary people?
For that to occur, the Act would need to be amended.
Oh, really? How?
Well, where there are what are called third-party review provisions, they're in Acts in other jurisdictions. So it does appear that in order to do that, we'd have to have an Act amendment. What we're going to do in the first instance is to try and put in a lot more transparency around those decisions. So I think one of Stan's recommendations, I think he has floated, is likely around the publication of decisions that we make and notices that we issue on the web, right? So that you can at least, then you can have a crack at us, if you like, about it in that way. A lot more follow-up to people who raise issues. So if you're one of the 7,500 people who ring in during the year with a pollution report, we will work to a situation where you get something back in return. What happened? And then you'll be able to say, well, that's not enough. Yeah. Right? And you'll say, well, I want some follow-up action and try and work. So it's unlikely to be a formal review mechanism while the Act is the way it is, but that doesn't mean we can't do a lot more to allow people to have greater scrutiny of what we do and then challenge it informally.
What about people who fall through the gaps between the agencies and the EPA?
Look, it's probably the single biggest theme that came out of the community meetings, I think, was that frustration about either overlaps or gaps between us and local government, us and Department of Planning, us and anyone. So I suppose the first step will be for us to put out something quite specific about what our jurisdiction is, so that we can at least define for people where the boundaries are. I think the longer term step is really that this is my personal view. I don't think it's the community's problem or business. I don't think the community or business should have to navigate government. I think that's my problem. I haven't quite worked out how to solve that problem, but it is in part around ensuring that certainly this agency works far more closely with other government agencies. So that's, I think, most pressing with local government, where there are some really blurred lines around, noise odours, a whole lot of things about big business, small business, domestic. I can't see it's that hard to at least clarify where those lines are and where we butt up to each other and how we're going to work at the margins there. So I think, so the first step I think is being clear what our jurisdiction is. I think the second thing is culturally accepting responsibility for that problem, because it clearly diminishes all of us, whether we like it or not. Whether someone thinks that we should fix something that's not our problem. The fact is, we all get diminished by that, and that erodes the fundamental authority that we use and discharge every day. So I just think it's our job to try and tackle it. I just think a whole lot more can be done.
How much power does the EPA have when it comes to law reform? Will there be any suggestion in any of the reports that maybe the laws need to change to give you a bit more freedom?
Yeah, look, it's not part of Stan's brief, although I think he's indicated publicly that where there are issues about the Act, that he'll at least record them. Yeah. The reason why I'm a bit guarded about this is simply this. Under our system of parliamentary democracy, we go to election, elect governments, governments make laws, regulators implement them. And the community needs to be confident that their regulator will act in good faith, whatever its personal view might be about the law that's there. It's not our job to make the law. That's Parliament makes laws. We have no mandate to do that. Our job is to make those laws work.
Of course, but do you have any power as a government body to suggest, hey buddy, this is not going well? We have, yes, we work very the way our system of democracy works is that our ministers are advised by their department, and we work closely with the department to say, well, this is what we think should happen. This is what we think you should consider in recommendations to you, and we do that a lot. But it's not something we can do publicly, because whatever view we might hold about any particular law that's there, people need to be in no doubt whatsoever that we'll give effect to the law that's in front of us and make it work and not make excuses for not working it. Some auditors have previously worked for the EPA. Does this create a conflict of interest? Look, I haven't heard that criticism of it. I mean, the environmental auditor regime is an important part of our system, and it's inevitable in such a small industry that there are ex-EPA people everywhere, absolutely everywhere. We come across them all the time. I think that's fundamentally a good thing. I'd be happy if everyone was once upon a time an EPA person, but I haven't heard of any instance where the service that the auditor has provided to the business has been questioned because they might have once worked for us. What I tend to find is that there is an enormous appetite in business for ex-EPA people to work for them or to provide their service, because the laws that we work to are difficult, and anyone who's got an intimate understanding of them is very valuable. But secondly, the nature of all the issues that we deal with is that they are rarely black and white, that judgment's really critical to it, and experience is really important. So if it's a problem, I'm happy to hear more about it, but it's not one that's been raised before.